Okay, Genesis chapter 8, the message. Then God turned his attention to Noah and all the wild animals and farm animals with him on the ship. He caused the wind to blow and the floodwaters began to go down. The underground springs were shut off. The windows of heaven closed and the rain quit. Inch by inch, the water lowered. After 150 days of the worst was over. On the 17th day of the 7th month, the ship landed on the Ararat mountain range. The water kept going down into the 10th month. On the first day of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains came into view. After 40 days, Noah opened the window that he had built into the ship. He sent out a raven. It flew back and forth, waiting for floodwaters to dry up. Then he sent a dove to check on the flood conditions, but it didn't even find a place to perch. Water still covered the earth. Noah reached out and caught it, brought it back into the ship. He waited 7 more days and sent out the dove again. It came back in the evening with a freshly picked olive leaf in its beak. Noah knew that the flood was about finished. He waited another 7 days and sent the dove out a 3rd time. This time, it didn't come back. In the 601st year of Noah's life, on the day of the 1st month, the flood had dried up. Noah opened the hatch of the ship and saw dry ground. By the 27th day of the 2nd month, the earth was completely dry. God spoke to Noah, "Leave the ship you and your wife, and your sons' wives, and take all the animals with you, the whole menagerie of birds and animals and crawling creatures, all that swarming extravagance of life, so they can reproduce and flourish on the earth." Noah disembarked with his sons and his wife and his sons' wives. Then all the animals, crawling creatures, birds, every living creature on the face of the earth left the ship, family by family. Noah built an altar to God. He selected clean animals and birds from every species and offered them as a burnt offering onto the altar. God smelled the sweet fragrance and thought to himself, "I'll never again curse the ground because of people. I know they have this bent toward evil from an early age, but I'll never again kill off anything living as I've just done. For as long as earth lasts, planting and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never stop." That last verse, "for as long as earth lasts," the King James Version also says, "as long as the earth remains." I want to keep that at this forefront here. There will be an end to this planet. He says so. He's going to do an actual true end to this place, this version. And it's not going to be a flood. He said he's never going to do that again. Even though he knows that we're wicked. And he knows that we'll become wicked again. This world is going to be filled with people just to their own imaginations, doing as whatever they please against the true order, which in reality is for us. Not for him. It's for us. But people are doing whatever they feel like in their heart. And he said because of that, for as long as earth lasts. Because, it could last forever if he wills it. He's clearly stating that it will not last forever. That he has plans to burn this place up. That's what he says later. He's going to burn this place up. It's going to be its own inferno, its own hell, so to speak. He's burning this place. So it just puts into perspective for me, like, how much you shouldn't really value this world. It's just a time here. It's just a small period of time of existence you have here. It isn't about things, and it isn't about bitterness or revenge or whatever, hatred. It's just not about that stuff. It's just weird, like, it's the fact that people already know, and even if you don't believe in God, you already know that this is a temporary, fast thing, and you either just have no belief or concept of God to think that this is all you get. And even if this was all you get, even if it is, why would you spend it being nasty and evil to people outside your circle or whatever, even people in your circle? Because in reality, you're just being nasty and mean to yourself. Anyway, it's just a very interesting thought. And God has plans for this place. He's going to end it. He's just not going to end it this way. That's what he's stating. He didn't do that. He was going to, and he didn't because of Noah and his family. So, for one righteous person and his family, he spared this place. It says a lot about his mercy. Sorry, I'm just looking through here again because there was something else and I may not find it. Oh, yes, going back. I mentioned in the King James Version how Noah's sending out the birds, the raven and the dove, several times to check for dry land. In the King James Version that I read, I kind of looked at it two different ways. Like, it could be that he was getting signs that it was time and he didn't take it. Or what I prefer, he was waiting on God to tell him that it was okay. He tested the waters, literally, to see if it was okay on his own. But he didn't go out. Nothing went out of that ark until he heard God say to him that it was okay. And this is in verse 15. Genesis 8, verse 15. God spoke to Noah, "Leave the ship, you and your wives and your son wives and your sons. Take all the animals with you and the whole menagerie of birds and mammals, crawling creatures, and all that swarming extravagance of life so that they can reproduce and flourish the earth." I mean, he waited until he got that direction. He didn't move, even though he tested the waters. I love the fact that he waited on God to tell him, even if it seemed like it could have been right without that. He waited for the Creator to say that it was okay before he actually moved. So, for me in life, like, sometimes I do see things as like, should I? Is that like the sign that I should go? And there's been a few things recently where, in certain things I'm looking for answers for, and I'm looking out for God, to show me. I kind of went ahead of him, and I mean, I didn't get ahead of him so much that I went through with things, but I went ahead of him because I thought, like, maybe this is a sign from him that I should go. Kind of like these doves and this raven. And I went out and I tested it to see if it was, And even though it seemed like maybe it could have been, God gave me a sign within that hour, of what I was doing. Now, I'll tell you about this story later. It's not something bad. I was looking for something good, and the places that I was going to were good places, but he made sure to make it nearly impossible for me to get in touch with these things, even though it wasn't bad. It just wasn't where God wanted me to go, and that was what I was asking. I was wanting to know if that was where I was supposed to go, so I didn't want to miss it. I went, and he put a block on it to make sure that I didn't fully go through, which was really interesting, because, I mean, even if you do test the waters a little bit, if you're looking for God, he will answer you. He will show some way. He'll make it really clear. Like I just told you here, he put a block on it. He made sure that I wasn't able to go to these places or call about them or anything. he made sure that it was just every single one. I went down a list, and it was just every single one was just like a no. And they weren't bad places. They just weren't the places that he wanted me to go or be. So he put a block on it. And that was that, It taught me a lesson to, not necessarily you don't have to go and physically test the waters out, but when you hear God say something, if he's telling you to do something or move or stop, just heed it, He knows what's best. And just the fact that Noah, even though he did test the waters, he ultimately waited for God's word that everything was good and it was okay to resume life on land. And we can practice that in our own lives in some way. So, yeah. They were in that ark for a very long time. For at least somewhere around a year. It looks like pretty close to one, give or take. And I can't imagine what that must have been like. You're just in a huge ark, and there's like all these animals, even bugs. I don't even know how they kept all this. It's only by the grace of God that somehow this was able to actually happen. Because that's crazy. You're in there and you've got your family. And meanwhile, the whole world is dying while you're inside this thing, and you've got all the animals. Bugs, How do you keep up with bugs? How do you do that? There's just so much going on. Although somehow bugs are good at taking care of themselves, in these type of conditions. Many of them, if they have a place to creep and crawl, they'll survive. So I guess maybe it isn't that hard to imagine, but it is a lot. I can't imagine being in a super huge ark full of like the land's creatures and things. That's a lot. That's a whole lot. But it worked out because God said so. So it's just really interesting stuff. I keep saying that the Bible is really interesting because it is. But that's pretty much what I got out of this, is that God has officially reset the world, and Noah, in some strange way, a way that I'm still trying to understand fully. He builds an altar to God, and he does some burnt offerings, which is basically what Abel did. And it's definitely as a way of praising him and saying thanks, acknowledging God in some huge way. And God's receiving the acknowledgement, even stating, that he's never going to curse the ground again, because of people and their wickedness. He's not going to flood us out. Even if there are floods, he's not going to flood it like how he just did here, where it wiped out the human race and all the animals. It wiped out everything except for the sea creatures. He said he's never going to do that again. But as I said before, the very next verse, 22, for as long as earth lasts, he said he's never going to do it. So he's not planning on this place lasting forever. There will come a day where this will all be over. The world as we know it. And, no offense, but that's a good thing. Because we're terrible. We are just absolutely insane. And apparently we don't learn. Because there's been a few of these type of scenarios where God is like having to stop, just end things with large groups of people. And it just keeps coming back to this evil in our hearts. And even when you're walking with God, like you are constantly, there's a fight with the evil in your own heart, in my heart. Are you kidding? Please know that I'm not putting myself above anyone. I've had evil in my heart. I will have evil in my heart, And the best thing I can do is chastise that stuff because I know that it's evil. And not dwell on a thought like that. Sometimes they're fed to you. Spiritually, by that other dude. But you have the choice to manifest that or not. You don't have to stay with that thought. I always rebuke it these days because I just realize that it's wrong. And I don't want it to grow into an actual manifestation into my real life because I'm acting on it. I've done that before, and it was just, I've done it a lot of times before I understood that what this really was spiritually. And I'm able to identify it and have some discernment and rebuke it and just not act on it and not want it. Almost replace it with something better that's of God. But, that takes a lot of time and practice, and you kind of have to be on some kind of journey with God in order to do that. You can't really do that by yourself, because this world will try to get the better of you, really, and make the worst out of you while it's getting the better. You don't have to let that happen. You can choose to do differently. Even if somebody is negative towards you, you don't have to turn negative. Show love and be kind. Let that person harvest their own negativity, That's up to them to find God and get help. Find Jesus, get help. Find therapy, get help. Whatever it is. They're going to need God, though, for sure. But, when it comes to the wickedness of your heart, it can be tamed with the help of God, with the help of Jesus Christ. He will help you. You can't do it by yourself, especially if you don't even know why it's happening or why you feel that way. So that's the end of this chapter, Genesis chapter 8. I think I'm doing one more because I think just the story of Noah, any story really, you can relate it to life today and just your own journey in it. And this just lets me know about God. He can take things away, but he can replace them, with even better things. And usually if he's taken something away, or he's allowing things to be taken, or he's allowing you to experience loss, and you're walking with him, mind you. You're not just out there coasting through life. You're with him. There's a reason behind it. It's not for nothing, I promise. It's not in vain. He's removing the things that probably you didn't even know were wicked. He's getting rid of it so that he can give you something better. The real version, probably, of whatever that was pretending to be, that was removed. So just stay with him. Don't look at any loss in life. If you're walking with God, don't look at loss as a loss. It could also just be a temporary thing, that it's gone for now. There's just so many things. But if you're walking with God, just don't worry about it. It's hard to say. But the more that you walk with him and in his ways, the more you understand what I'm talking about. Actually walking with him without this anxiety and fear. And you might have a couple of moments, but that's when you pray and you praise him and you just look to him to give you what you need inside to trust him. The more that time goes by for me, especially at this point in my life, the more I understand how silly all this stuff in life is. It just is also silly. Yes, of course you need food and shelter and clothes and stuff like that. And God knows you need those things. He says it in this book. He knows what you need. He's got your back, especially if you're seeking him. But really, most of the stuff in life is just a bunch of distraction, and these things can either make or break you depending on, if you're living in the flesh versus the spirit. But that's all I got to say about that. Sounding like Forrest Gump here. That's all I got to say about that. But it's true. It is all I got to say about it. And I hope that you got something out of it. As usual, please share what you got out of it. This is just a short commentary on something that it's just what I got out of it during this time that I read. I read through this again at some other point. Maybe even later today. I could probably catch other things that I'm not mentioning here. Most likely. So I always want to know what's on other people's minds, because there's always just an endless amount of things that you can catch in a verse, let alone a chapter. So I pray that you did, whatever it is. And I'm praying many, many, many blessings over you in your walk to discover God, or if you're with Him already and you've been with Him, I just pray that it continues to get stronger. So I pray many, many, many blessings. Many, 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 many blessings over you. And appreciate you for tuning in. Until next time, this was Genesis chapter 8, The Message. All right, bye.